Hey everybody, it's Nicole here today with a Simon Says Stamp card featuring some of my favorite dies from Simon Says Stamp, which are the picture book die collection. These are the Otters. So stinking cute. I absolutely love the picture book collection. I have lots of cards where I've used the picture book dies. In fact, I'll link to those on my blog post. You can click to that underneath the video here on YouTube if you want to see that or see some other projects I've created with picture book dies. But they are some of my favorites and they create absolutely amazing die cut scene cards, which I think is fantastic. I'm a huge fan of scene cards anyway. I love stamped scene cards, but I also love die cut scene cards. And other than a small stamped phrase on this card, everything is created with dies. Starting with my background, I knew I wanted to use the Woodgrain block die, which is kind of down in the lower left corner of the screen, which I die cut from some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and we're going to ink this to look like a floating log in some water, but I wanted a background that looked like water. So we're going to have a die cut wave in the front, the log, and then this stenciled background in the that gives the illusion of these otters kind of floating along in the water. This is the Simon Says Stamp Waves and Hills stencil. Love this stencil. I've used it a couple times already. Fantastic stencil. This time I'm using cracked pistachio and peacock feathers for kind of a maybe non-traditional water type of theme. And I am simply flipping this stencil back and forth, masking off areas where I don't want to accidentally get some ink transfer using a little post-it tape, and then inking up these waves. I really wanted this fresh and clean color palette, and I love cracked pistachio and peacock feathers together. These are the Distress Oxide versions of those colors. The background is created from Bristol Smooth cardstock, which, if you've heard me talk about before, is my favorite cardstock for ink blending with either regular Distress inks or Distress Oxide inks. They blend so smoothly, so beautifully, and really work fantastic here. I went ahead and went almost up to the top of my panel. This panel is trimmed to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. And I'm overlapping the colors, kind of alternating between the two. We don't need to go all the way down to the very bottom, as that's going to be covered up with my wood grain, like little floating log, and then a die cut stitched border in the front. So we can tuck one of the otters back behind the log and one kind of down in front behind the wave. Once I have my background completely stenciled here, I do have a wave die cut from one of my all-time favorite dies. This is just from a little scrap of Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is the Drifting Stitches border. I picked one of those borders from that die collection, die cut that from some Bristol Smooth cardstock, and then inked it up with both colors of Distress Oxide ink. This is going to work and blend perfectly into my background design. I wanted it to really be seamless, but not have tons of layers. I didn't want to die cut all of those wave layers in the background, so the stencil comes in so handy. Now for the wood grain block, this is awesome if you want to create a tree trunk. It's awesome for so many different things. In this case, I'm inking it up with Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink. And then I'm just going to kind of wipe this and get rid of some of the excess ink because it kind of sits on top of the cardstock a little bit. And this is going to go along the bottom edge, and the wave is going to be adhered in front of that. I'm just going to clean up my work surface a little bit. I forgot to put down my Easy Clean mat, but I'm able to wipe this off of my Spellbinders mat pretty easily. Grab my paper towel, and I'm just going to rub that excess ink off here to remove some of that. Then we're going to just go ahead and put some nice strong adhesive on the back of this and adhere it kind of down near the bottom edge. I didn't adhere it directly along the bottom edge, just up maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. And then we'll put that wave border down right along the bottom edge of the card. I didn't stick it down really hard yet because I do need to go ahead and adhere one of my die cut otters underneath that. In fact, it's not sticking very good at all quite yet. So now we get to put together the picture book otters. I am a huge fan, like I mentioned, of the picture book die collection. I did ink up the edges of my Otter with a little Gathered Twigs Distress Oxide ink. The Otter itself, I used Lawn Fawn paper bag cardstock to die cut the majority of the Otter's body, vanilla malt for the kind of tummy area on that guy, ballet slippers for the nose, and black licorice for the eyes. And we're going to tuck him over to the right of the card just a little bit, leaving room for that awesome "Whoa, you're amazing" greeting, also from Simon Says Stamp. And we're going to customize that greeting with some fun colors of cardstock as well. I like to secure my picture book dies. Either I've used the Xyron sticker maker in the past, which does work really well, or a liquid adhesive most of the time. The pieces are generally pretty small. A jewel picker or some tweezers really helps with perfect placement on these little guys. And I like to use a precision tip nozzle on my multi-matte medium or glossy accents, whatever I'm using, to really get little dabs of glue, especially for the eyes and the nose. And you can kind of see this little guy come to life. In fact, I just layered my black die cut piece right over it and poked the eyes through it into the glue that I already applied into my little picture book Otter. The scene is starting to come to life here. So super cute. In fact, I got a little smudge, so I used my Tombow Mono eraser to get rid of that little smudge there on my Otter. Now for the sentiment, I did part of it off camera. I also die cut this off camera using the Gemini Craft die cutting machine. It worked really well. From the white version of "Whoa, You're Amazing," I layered the back with foam adhesive, and then I die cut the sentiment again from Lawn Fawn Cilantro, Blue Jay, and Mermaid, and I even believe Peacock cardstock, and then Simon Says Stamp Mint cardstock. The yellow, the sticky note cardstock there, I ended up not using for my card. I didn't feel like it went very well. I kept to the green and blue color palette, which really ended up working so much better. And then I'm simply replacing the letters from those colorful die cuts and alternating them on the greeting for this really colorful little die cut greeting. This took no time at all to put together. In fact, I would just layer over some of the colorful ones and poke those little areas out right into where they go on my card. And so cute. You can save those greetings then and use those for additional projects later on. I just tuck them into the back of my little pocket, the stamp envelope or the die cut envelope that I keep the die in, and I automatically have some sentiments that I can use for other cards later on. Now we're going to peel off the backing paper from "Whoa, You're Amazing" and pop that right in place onto the card. I have also die cut and adhered an additional Otter down there near the bottom edge. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we've got one Otter back behind and one in front. There's that greeting kind of off to the left side. And then I need to pick a sentiment to stamp, and I need something that isn't quite so long. I'm using a greeting from the Simon Says Stamp plus CZ Design Emphatic stamp set. We're going to use something a little different. While I was still contemplating exactly which greeting I wanted to use, I gave my Otter some cute little eyelashes with a fine tip black pin. I like doing that. And then adding some little white dots to their cheeks with a white opaque pin. Also a little highlight to the nose, to the centers of the eyes, gives the face just a little bit more character. Anything you can do like this that adds more character to the image is something I really love for die cut scene cards. I decided to go ahead and use the "You Feelin' Me" sentiment from the Emphatic stamp set. We're going to stamp that with embossing ink Sprinkle on a little white embossing powder, heat set this, trim it into a thin strip, and pop it down right underneath the die cut greeting. This is the only stamping on this card. That's why I'm calling it an all die cutting card. When my cards feature really only maybe a small stamped sentiment, the card really still is only die cutting. Now where I use my powder tool, my anti-static powder tool on the black cardstock, I don't want that residue. So after I've embossed it and the embossing powder is cooled, I like to just take my finger or a dry cloth and buff away any of that excess powder. A little 1/8 inch score tape on the back of this sentiment, and we're going to pop it in place right there on the card. And then we're going to add some finishing details. Very, very small, but something I absolutely love are the Honeybee Stamps Candy Heart accents. These are little heart, kind of foamy type of accents. I love them. We're going to glue them in place all over the card design, just kind of in a little scattering detail. I went ahead and attached the background to my top fold card base, and then I'm going to put little dabs of glue throughout the background using Ranger Multi-Matte Medium and glue these little hearts in place. They add a nice subtle embellishment to the design that don't overpower the cute little otter scene that we have going on. I like to kind of lay them out first and get an idea of where they're going to go, and then I'll go ahead and start gluing them down. So we've got one down here at the bottom. I'm just using some little tweezers to kind of move those into place. So kind of a scattering from the bottom left corner to that top sort of right center. These otters are absolutely adorable. I just think they're so, so cute. This card would work for anyone really, just a great encouragement type card, or a card saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. You're an amazing person. I love cards like this that will work for multiple occasions. So we'll glue that last little candy heart down, and that is going to finish up this all die cutting otter scene card featuring dies from Simon Says Stamp. Thanks for joining me today for this die cut stenciled scene card featuring picture book dies and other dies from Simon Says Stamp. The supplies I used to create this card are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here are a couple more videos featuring Simon Says stamps and dies that you might be interested. Please subscribe for weekly card making and stamping videos. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.